lassoing a wounded shark, in life-or-death emergency surgery at sea.
We've got to get close enough to this animal where we're hugging it.
David, get your hand down.
Cliff diving into disaster, on an insane mission for giant Trevally.
You're going, oh my God, how am I going to stop this thing?
A face-to-face Thresher shark showdown on a surfboard.
When you've got a frenzied shark in the water with you, you've got a problem on your hands.
And a deadly fishing skirmish, wrestling a mammoth bass barehanded.
I sank to the bottom. All I saw was green and bubbles and rocks. I thought I was gonna die.
Forget fishing as usual. It's the world's most outrageous adventure angling. Epic battles of man versus fish pushed to the edge of courage, endurance, and obsession. Uncover the bravest ocean encounters on Earth in Hooked Extreme Angling. On ambitious quests, in remote locations, with custom adventure gear, they risk it all in the most terrifying tests of angler versus behemoth beast. In these treacherous clashes of extreme sportsmen against ocean predator, some fishermen dare to do the impossible, pushing the limits of experience, luck, and survival to the breaking point.
Nick, we'll need to get those other tanks too.
For one group of scientists on a mission to save a dying deep-sea hunter, it's going to take some of the most extreme and daring fishing they've ever attempted. Byron Bay, Australia, July 16th, 2008. Marine biologist and professional sea rescuer Trevor Long gets an urgent call.
When was the last time you saw it?
Kilometers from shore, divers have spotted a 2.9-meter sand tiger shark in dire distress.
Make sure you don't forget that tether line, will you? I'll just get this hoop out.
Incredibly, a 4-foot hooked fishing gaff is stuck deep in the animal's throat.
Don't forget that line, Nick.
Yep.
Trevor quickly assembles a team of top veterinarians, biologists, and animal recovery pros. Though no amount of experience can guarantee their safety, Operation Shark Rescue is on.
Okay, guys, we're out of here.
Heading out aboard the rescue vessel SeaWorld 1, with each second, Trevor and his team are on borrowed time. In parts of the world, sand tiger sharks are critically endangered. Saving any of them is vital. But this shark is in serious trouble.
This animal cannot feed, it can't forage, it can't obtain any prey whatsoever. If we don't remove it, there's only one situation that's going to happen here. This shark's going to die.
The team's target? Meet one of nature's scariest cannibals. Natural-born predators, sand tiger sharks are programmed to attack and devour anything that crosses their path. From infancy, a sand tiger's mission is brutally simple: kill or be killed. In the womb, the first sand tiger egg hatched already carries cutting jaws. Infanticidal and hungry, it turns on its siblings, feeding until no one's left.
So what happens, Mum has a range of animals in the uterus. The fittest of those animals will actually feed on the others and consume them, and only that female will only have 1 or 2 pups at the end of the day.
If you think about it, you're gonna have a really aggressive animal that comes out of this really awful process.
And as they grow, sand tigers only get more lethal. Nicknamed the ragged-toothed shark, one look and it's easy to see why. Over 80 stabbing, jutting fangs turn their mouths into predatory pincushions.
Sand tigers, they've got a lot of teeth, a lot of big teeth, and they're really raggedy. They got all these gnarly edges to them.
A relative of the great white, sand tiger sharks grow to whopper sizes, over 3 meters long, weighing nearly 160 kilos. But they get even more dangerous when these warm water hunters naturally swim close to shore and encounter humans. With 29 unprovoked attacks on record, sand tigers have earned a lethal reputation. Man-eaters. Yet in reality, sand tigers are more often the victim of our commercial overfishing, bycatch, and habitat destruction. Still, though we must help to save the species, be warned, they're dangerous. Like any powerful predator, a threatened sand tiger can turn deadly.
These animals have a mouthful of teeth, and if you get your hand anywhere near them, you're gonna get your hand bitten off. These large sharks have really strong jaws, and they can easily slice right through bone.
And now, Trevor Long and the rescue team aboard SeaWorld 1 plan to wrangle an injured tiger shark head-on. Amazingly, to get the shark to the boat, Trevor plans to lasso it. The technique requires a special tool, a custom spring-loaded lasso that propels rope towards the target. Once the trigger's pulled, spring clips release, securing the rope around the beast. But roping a shark safely takes more than special tools. It takes intense training and marksman-like precision. And there's always a risk, getting so close to a killer fish. Now, to save this dying beast, they first gotta find it, more than 4 hours out at sea. The team makes its way to the rocky outcrop where the shark was first spotted. They can only hope the animal's still there and alive. An injured shark's behavior is violently unpredictable. Yet, the team's gotta perform emergency surgery.
Now we're going to go down, pluck this animal out of the ocean, bring it on board, and then somehow get this gaff out of it and release it alive. This isn't an easy exercise.
Arriving at their target location, Trevor prepares his custom shark lasso.
I would go down, hopefully be able to locate the animal, because we didn't know how long it was going to take to fight the animal to get it back to the boat.
The murky water makes visibility a serious challenge. Then, a breakthrough. Trevor spots the shark circling near the rocks and can't believe his eyes. It's enormous, stretching nearly 3 meters long.
When I first saw it, I was quite excited, but I had to ensure that I didn't let my excitement impact on what I had to do, and that was to concentrate on this animal, because you're stalking an animal.
Now, the game has changed. With the shark in sight, Trevor needs to make sure the beast doesn't see him. If the shark spots Trevor or the crew, it might flee, or worse, the shark could turn on the divers, attacking in self-defense. Trevor positions himself above the shark's blind spot. If his shot misses, the spook beast will be lost. Aiming carefully, Trevor focuses, fires, and hits his target. He's got the lasso on. But the danger mounts. At any moment, the shark's sharp teeth could shred the line. Even worse, the animal's now attempting to swim away. If Trevor holds on, the shark could drag him deep into open ocean. Trevor's only hope is to gain more leverage and turn the dying shark back towards the boat. He hovers directly overhead, getting closer and closer.
Any shark in a fight response where it's got a rope around it, it can be dangerous. And we've got to get close enough to this animal where we're hugging it almost.
Up close, Trevor assesses the damage. The 1+ meter fishing gaff is deeply embedded in the shark's throat. A submerged plexiglass tube is used to hold the injured shark still, while the crew hoists the animal onto the boat. Though the tube is sized for a large shark, it's risky. If the contraption fits too tightly, it could push the swallowed fishing gaff even further down the shark's throat. The team slowly maneuvers the tube toward the mammoth monster. To prevent a lethal rupture, Trevor needs to stabilize the thrashing animal immediately. Staying calm as possible, with the shark still struggling, the team manages to get the tube in place, sliding the beast all the way in. But as feared, the gaff moves deeper into the shark's throat. They've got to get the injured predator to the boat, and fast. As everyone holds their breath, a special winch shoulders the precious cargo into a waiting tank on board.
We want a minimal amount of time for that animal to be out of water. So we crane it in the tube. Up on board, we've got a specially designed large fiberglass box full of water.
In the boat at last, speed is critical. The gaff has to come out.
Gonna come right through the back, honey.
First, to sedate the shark, the team uses a deceptively simple strategy, flipping the animal over. In this inverted position, a shark falls into a temporary trance called tonic immobility.
Let it calm down. Calm down.
Scientists are only beginning to understand the phenomenon, but they do know the amount of time the trance lasts is unpredictable.
Sharks will come into a very calm state if you can roll them on the back. Now, we've still got to be very careful. This animal can bite.
With the shark briefly sedated, the team inserts a thick plastic tube down its throat. The tube allows veterinarians to reach down and remove the gaff.
The vet can put his hand down the pipe to make himself safe from all those ragged, sharp teeth.
But even with the pipe in place, the vet's operation requires a steady hand and even steadier nerves. Suddenly, something goes wrong. Mid-procedure, the vet tries to loosen the gaff from outside the protective tubing.
David, get your hand out.
That tube came out of the shark's mouth. It's going to, literally tear the skin and deep into that vet's arms.
Take it out of there and put it beside it.
For nearly an hour, the painstaking operation continues as the vet struggles to unhook the gaff and safely remove it.
And the vet's under a lot of strain, a lot of duress. He's sitting in the water. He's extremely uncomfortable, and he's got his hand inside a shark's mouth.
No, seriously.
As the crew watches, after a tense 40 minutes, at last, with a careful push, the veterinarian feels the hook release from the shark's throat. Guiding the gaff pole up and out, he's done it.
Well done.
I asked him, I said, Dave, that was absolutely fantastic. And he said, failure was not an option.
But the mission isn't over yet. For the shark to have any chance of survival, the crew has to get it safely transferred by stretcher back into the water as fast as possible. Before releasing the 3-meter whopper, the team tags it and quickly administers antibiotics to prevent any wound infection. They then move the beast into position at the side of the boat and carefully lower it down. After a few moments, the shark slowly swims away. Divers follow along at a distance to observe and report the patient's condition back to Trevor.
After about 15 minutes, we could see that the animal got its colour back and it was starting to swim in a very normal manner. So we knew at that time that we've been successful. You know, 1,000,000 chance to even start this thing, and it's all gone exceptionally well, and we're pretty happy with that.
To this day, no one knows how the gaff got lodged in the shark's throat. But regardless of the cost, Trevor and his crew's mission to rescue this remarkable animal is a testament to the importance of human intervention to help save threatened species from extinction. Thousands of kilometers away, another extraordinary angler risks his life for the thrill of battle. The Seychelles Atolls, Indian Ocean, February 5th, 2006. International fishing adventurer and intrepid fly fishing guide Peter McLeod will go anywhere to catch whoppers. Remote locations mean big fish and the most extreme catches.
It's pristine wilderness environment. You get that kind of environment, then the fishing's going to be off the clock.
Peter's come to the Seychelles for one reason: to land one of the area's most notorious undersea adventure angling opponents, the giant Trevally.
There's something just primevally aggressive and rather, insane about giant Trevally.
In a world of whopper fish, giant Trevallies, GTs for short, are like hit-and-run hunters, striking with brutal precision and speed. Their stalking style? Bite first, ask questions later.
When Trevally are feeding, they hit hard, they hit fast, prey just flies out of the water.
With few competitors and even fewer natural enemies, GTs can grow big as bathtubs, over 1.5 meters long, weighing more than 70 kilograms. Muscle-bound brutes built with thick shoulders, blunt heads, and heavy torsos, these giants strike at any potential prey.
They can just blitz.
They're built just like torpedoes.
Like a raging bull, when a GT sets its sights on prey, they accelerate with fearsome force.
Trevally just run things down. They don't care if the prey sees them a mile off, they just blast into them.
Despite their bulk, a crescent-shaped caudal fin rockets them through the water with power and agility.
Trevallies have that big curved tail, which helps them accelerate really quickly.
And for adventure anglers like Peter McLeod, it all adds up to one of the toughest fighting fish on the planet.
It's known as the bulldog of the ocean.
Now, as Peter reaches his shoreline fishing spot along the atoll's rugged terrain, the angler scans the waters for shadowy movement. To get a better look, Peter decides to head for higher ground. Climbing rocks in the middle of the Indian Ocean is risky business. Yet for Peter, it's the only way to get a leg up on his adversary.
I climbed up one of these overhanging coral outcrops, probably 12, 15 feet up. It's literally like walking on lunar landscape. I mean, this thing is like really vicious. It's all dead coral reef. So you've got to be very, very careful.
Scanning from the top, the water's clear as glass. The angler spots his target, a giant Trevally ahead. It's huge and heading straight towards him.
And there I see, plumb sitting there is this massive GT, about 35 pounds. So the heart starts going and I'm beginning to getting really, really excited about it.
Wasting no time, Peter casts his line. In a flash, the voracious Trevally swallows the hook and takes off. The mammoth fish peels off line in a rush, showing no sign of stopping.
and it's like being attached to a bus. It's probably the best description. The take is just bang, hits you like a ton of bricks, and then suddenly everything's fizzing out of you, and you're going, oh my God, how am I gonna stop this thing?
As more line strips out, Peter's increasingly alarmed. Perched at the top of a jagged cliff, embroiled in a tug of war, he's at high risk.
So if I lacerate the hell out of myself on this coral, I'm in real trouble. We are moored 10 hours sail away from the nearest atoll that we can get a plane into. And from there, it's a 3.5-hour flight.
Peter knows he needs to act, and quickly.
Something's gonna have to give at this point. It's either gonna be me, I'm gonna get pulled over on this coral. It's gonna be my rod, it's gonna smash into about 6 or 7 different pieces. It's gonna be the line, it's gonna get nailed on the coral.
To save the catch, the extreme angler decides he has only one option: jump.
I'm thinking, I'm gonna have to get down there so I can put some side strain on this fish. I'm gonna have to get from here down to there very, very quickly.
With no idea what's in the water beneath him, Peter grabs hold of his fly rod as tight as he can and leaps off the cliff.
But when I hit that water, it was probably a little higher than I was anticipating, and I probably should have actually counted on the fact that I couldn't really see how deep it was in front of me.
In the water, the fisherman needs to gather his wits and get back to the fight fast. The Trevally continues to strip off line from the reel.
It's like spinning like a propeller. Absolutely going mental. This fish is howling out.
And Peter's fighting another risk. The hook could slip free. Committed to catch and release, he only uses hooks with the barbs removed. A growing practice among conservation-minded anglers, barbless hooks come out cleanly for a safe release. But they can also get loose during a fight.
So as soon as you have any form of lack of tension, then the hook will just drop out and the fish is gone.
With this once-in-a-lifetime catch, losing the hook now would be devastating. To maintain as much tension as possible on the line, Peter struggles to get to solid ground.
I managed to get to an area where I could get my feet on a bit of thing, and then I can really start putting some serious pressure on this fish.
The back-and-forth struggle takes every ounce of Peter's strength and wits. At any moment, if he loses focus, he'll lose the catch.
I mean, it's hard work. You're grunting. It's like, ah. Your back's beginning to go, and you're thinking, oh, Christ, this isn't fun anymore.
As he manages to reel the tiring fish almost close enough to touch, Peter reaches out to its tail. With a final pull on his fly rod, at last, Peter brings the monster to him. He's got his prized fish in hand. Up close, it's a trophy GT. At 90 centimeters long, 76 centimeters around, and weighing roughly 18 kilos, it's not the biggest GT Peter's ever caught, but it's one of the most extreme catches he's ever risked. The angler marvels over the phenomenal fish, but only for a moment.
The feeling when you pull that fish out of the water is just sheer elation. I mean, it's insane. But most important thing, we get that fish back in the water very quickly. He's gradually beginning to power away, he's getting his strength back.
With a little help recovering, the fish swims away. Safe.
He's off in my hand. I'm going, thank you!
Around the world, when extreme fishermen push the sport to its deadly limit, they take on the ocean's ultimate opponents. And in daredevil battles of angler versus beast, these monster predators are like stealth assassins. the Thresher shark.
This is an animal that's built to swim fast. So they will pursue their prey at great speeds and then essentially sneak up, stun them, come back around and consume them.
Thresher sharks can reach mammoth proportions. Record setters have stretched over 7.5 meters, weighing over 340 kilos. And when it comes to the hunt, Threshers wield a deadly weapon, their tails. Thresher tail fins stretch over half the length of their bodies.
I think of all the fish in the ocean, threshers clearly have the most unique way of getting prey. They swim right through a school of fish, knocking them around with that upper lobe of their tail fin, and then come around and pick up the injured.
This stunning attack style makes Threshers a formidable foe in and out of the water. The same deadly design Threshers use to deliver a powerful blow also helps them accelerate rapidly, propelling themselves straight out of the water. Any angler tough enough to tangle with a Thresher knows they're in for a fight with some scary surprises. Add a surfboard into the mix, and it's fishing at its most extreme.
When you're fishing from the board, one of the exciting things about it is you're in their element, and that kind of levels the playing field.
La Jolla, California, July 7th, 1998. Extreme angler Scott Cherry sets out for a typical day of fishing. Yet Scott's idea of fishing is anything but typical. With rod, reel, and surfboard, he's on the hunt for sharks. From blue sharks to white tips, Southern California's a known shark lair.
You get into a battle with one of these things, if you don't know what you're doing, you've got your life on the line. You can really get yourself in trouble.
Though dangerous, catches usually stretch only a few meters, weighing just a few dozen kilos. But the surf angler has no idea the behemoth beast he's about to encounter. Paddling out to his favorite fishing spot, Scott casts and sets his line to troll from the back of his board. Suddenly, the angler sees something in the distance. Looking closely, he spots a fin. It's a shark.
I was doing that slow troll with the live bait and dragging that bucket of chum, and I looked off to my left and I saw this beast screaming along the surface for about 50 yards and then dove, and he disappeared, and just a few moments later I hooked up.
Unsure what he's hooked, one thing Scott does know. Whatever it is, it's a monster. It's pulling hard and fast. As Scott struggles to stay in control, his strategy is daring. Hang on and take a wild ride.
You just get this jolt of energy. It's pure adrenaline.
But as Scott fights to stay hooked and stay on the surfboard, he suddenly catches a glimpse of something frightening. A whip-like tail emerging from the surf.
You'll see the dorsal fin, and you'll see lengths behind that, the tip of that Thresher tail cutting the water, and you know what you've got.
Scott's now certain this is no ordinary shark. It's a massive Thresher, and it's on the other end of Scott's line. He's hooked a raging beast. Scott tries to hang on, pulling back to set the hook, but the Thresher drags him across the water like a torpedo.
We just took off. I think at one point we had to be doing 10 knots. I knew this was a big beast.
Yet the thrill soon turns to fear. the Thresher is pulling Scott and his board over 8 kilometers out into open ocean. In these shark-infested waters, the Thresher's showing no signs of slowing down. Scott must take control before he's dragged out too far to make it back to shore. Yet stopping a fish in its tracks and turning it around from a surfboard requires tremendous strength from muscles already exhausted from battle.
Line was still paying out. So I put my thumb on the spool and put my legs in the water and kicked backwards a little bit and turned her around.
Through sheer determination, Scott's strategy works. With the shark turned around, the angler attempts again to reel in the monster. But the Thresher isn't giving in without a fight. For 45 minutes, Scott struggles. And just when he thinks things can't get any more extreme, he gets a better glimpse of his opponent.
This beast jumped and cleared the water completely. And at that point, I knew that I had a big battle on my hands.
Incredibly, the epic combat rages for 3.5 hours. With what's left of his strength, Scott gives a powerful pull. This time, he's got it. The shark comes to the surface, caught. It's truly huge, nearly the length of the surfboard. Scott believes in fishing sustainably for food, but somehow he's got to haul this massive beast miles back to shore. And the catch is about to take a turn for the terrifying. Hefting the shark onto the board, Scott's careful to keep from tipping over. As he begins to paddle back, something brushes against him. It's another shark.
Felt something hit my leg, felt like a bat hitting my leg. Ow! I looked down, and there was a shark, just absolute frenzy.
Bull sharks, tiger sharks, and gargantuan great whites all call the southern coast of California home. Scott can only guess who's hunting him and his catch. Already tired from an epic fishing struggle, now nearing total exhaustion and fighting fear, Scott paddles furiously, trying to keep the hunting shark at bay. The surf angler never gets a close look at his pursuer, but he can feel its presence.
At that point, I was really moving on that board.
An incredible 3.5 hours after he set out, paddling back through shark-infested waters, Scott makes it to shore, alive, unhurt, with his mammoth catch intact.
We brought it up on the beach and laid it down across my surfboard. It was almost the length of my 12-foot surfboard.
The Whopper measures 3.3 meters long and weighs 63.5 kilos. It's believed to be the largest fish ever caught from a surfboard. An incredible victory for a truly extreme angler.
It's taking everything that you've got. It's taken a lot of time, and it's when you finally catch the thing and you've secured it, it makes you feel like f***ing Tarzan.
Across a continent, when it comes to extreme encounters of man versus Whopper, nothing levels the playing field like taking the battle deep into the fish's turf. And for one adventure angler, suiting up and swimming out alone, it's the ultimate test of endurance, strength, and nerve. Skishing.
You get that sensation of being on a mission, on the hunt.
Like an angler's triathlon, skishing combines swimming, scuba diving, and fishing. The master of the sport, Paul Melnick. A pro who believes in stacking the odds against himself. Adventure angling pushed to the limit.
People often ask me why I just don't get a boat. Boats are bogus. What's the point of fun or skill in standing in a boat? I really, really enjoy putting myself in positions that are on the edge. I have no intention of dying in a bed.
Paul's most prized opponent, the striped bass. Able to stretch over 180 centimeters long, weighing more than 55 kilos. They're kings of their offshore domain.
So striped bass, like many other members of the fish community, will sit up above a reef and hold station waiting for prey to come along, and then boom, ambush them. Sneak attack.
The thing about striped bass is you get them into the surf and they can really utilize water motion. They put that big slab side against a rip current or against a tide, and you try to pull them in and it's like pulling against a boulder.
For an obsessed skisherman, hooking a speeding striped bass is an intense thrill. But wrestling one barehanded can become a showdown of life and death.
You are on his grounds. He has the same chance of drowning you as you have of killing it. Just that fact makes it extremely thrilling.
Montauk, Long Island, New York, September 15th, 2005. This historic fishing town is a mecca for anglers trying to land big bass. Long Island bass fishing is a traditional sport. Until Paul Melnick enters the game. While other anglers line up along the coast, Paul's in a wetsuit. To catch big offshore bass, Paul swims past the breakers toward a rocky outcrop. Just over 90 meters out, perched on the jagged rocks, Paul likes the vantage point. But experience has taught him, out here, he's got to be extremely careful.
Crashing in the surf and hitting your face on a rock, bad thing. Being grabbed by a riptide, hauled down the beach, off into the distance, bad thing. Fog is a really bad thing. I've gotten caught in the fog. You cramp up because of the exertion of fighting the fish. You can drown, obviously. Drowning is the #1 bad thing.
Casting into the turbulent waters, Paul knows choppy surf is exactly where bass like to hunt.
Bass love to feed at the surf line because the waves are throwing tons and tons of oxygen into the water.
Suddenly, the fisherman feels a tug on the line, then a jolt. Paul reels in fast, keeping constant tension.
I gave it a good tug. Next thing that happens is I'm having the fight of my life with God knows what this was.
There's no time to wonder what he's hooked. A huge swell pushes Paul up off the rocks. The fighting fish takes over, dragging the angler into open water.
At that moment, you know, the fight was on. And I was free. It was obviously a big fish because it was dragging me all over the place. Had me on my face, it had me upside down. You know, I was swallowing water, I was spitting seawater.
Far from shore, Paul is repeatedly dragged under, deeper and deeper.
I was in the middle of a current that was moving about 6 knots, and it was moving out to sea. I thought I was gonna die.
Forcing himself not to panic, refusing to lose the catch, Paul leans back and tries to use his opponent's powerful pull to his advantage.
I figured out that if you sit in a semi-prone position and kicked, you could fight back on the fish.
Instinct and experience tell Paul he's battling a whopper striped bass. No matter how fast he reels, the fish won't quit. Every time the angler thinks he's got it beat, the fish takes off again for deeper water.
Striped bass are a very strong animal. The fact that they pull you all over the ocean is testimony to that. It fought like a trooper, like a linebacker.
But Paul's just as determined. Treading water, kicking forcefully as he can, he begins to inch the fish closer and closer towards him. Now, with the beast in range, Paul pounces. Using maximum force to stay upright in the powerful current, he swim wrestles the fish. Paul's got the fish in his arms. He's face to face with his whopper striped bass. But the battle isn't over yet. Though his body's aching, Paul's still far from shore. Entering survival mode, he channels all his remaining strength, focusing on kicking and getting back to dry land. With his catch trailing behind him, the adventure angler finally makes it to shore. Success. The whopper bass stretches over 120 centimeters, weighing nearly 22 kilos. A true test of skill, and a triumph Paul Melnick will never forget.
It's like a special forces mission that you've successfully achieved. It's that pure, macho, I did it, I did it. This is a unique experience, and I did it.
In the opposite hemisphere, another passionate sportsman pushes fishing to the limit. In the world of outrageous adventure angling, extreme weather can be dangerous or an extreme advantage. Braving conditions others won't dare, some obsessed fishermen catch a big wind to land even bigger fish. Kite fishing.
The boats might be land-based for 2 months in the winter, I've seen it, and I'm out there kite fishing, getting the big snappers.
Taranaki, New Zealand, September 22, 2006. Winter on the coast is brutally cold. High winds make the volcanic black sand beaches even more inhospitable. The local catch? Snapper, a fish known to lurk over 3 kilometers offshore. Not the best conditions for your average shorecaster. But Jeff Preston is anything but average.
A lot of my mates think I'm mad doing it because it's bloody cold in the winter.
This cold, windy day is no different. As Jeff sets up on the beach, he knows exactly where the snappers go to hunt. Of the over 100 species of snapper worldwide, the razor-toothed specimens who frequent these waters can live as long as 60 years, stretch almost a meter, and weigh over 18 kilos. Skittish and streamlined, these snapper always put up a fight. But to take this prized food fish on, Jeff Preston doesn't own a boat. He also doesn't use a fishing pole. His method? Casting his line by kite flying.
Kite enables me to get my line out way past the dirty water, which usually the big fish won't come near, a mile or even up to 2 miles.
The goal of kite fishing is to drag bait along the ocean floor, making it look like fast-swimming fish, enticing larger fish to pounce. To kite fish, a fisherman attaches multiple baited hooks to a kite line, uses a weight for ballast, and waits for a strong wind to carry the kite fishing contraption out to sea. Jeff is experienced, but any kite fishing expedition can easily go wrong. A typical kite fishing line carries 20 hooks hundreds of meters out to sea. But even with 20 chances to get a bite, in kite fishing, the odds are as brutal as the weather.
Some days you've got howling winds and every day's different. There's never many days where it's actually perfect.
The fisherman tries to get the kite up repeatedly, but difficult wind currents are making it almost impossible. After several attempts, the kite catches a strong gust.
She goes.
Jeff's now confident. The game is on.
Get out!
But kite fishing takes patience. With his line drifting out to sea, Jeff bides his time for several hours. All of a sudden, there's a strong tug. Something's hooked, and it's powerful.
It was heavy from the first initial pulling. It was a good mile offshore.
Jeff starts hoisting the line, first pulling it out of the water, and then cranking fast as he can. Time is critical. Jeff knows he's got to get his catch to the beach quickly. With each passing second, the fish could escape or be devoured by sharks. Then he sees it.
Oh, he's a good size! He's a good size!
Even at a distance, the kite fisherman is amazed. This beast is big.
Yes, we've got a nice snapper!
Jeff's more determined than ever to land it. But with kite fishing, tension has to be just right. Patience is key.
Because I have had them get off through being too impatient. Because if they lip hook, they can rip in the waves as the back pressure of the wave goes out.
The angler pulls for a staggering 2 hours. Trying to reel in his monster catch from notoriously shark-infested waters, the kite fisherman yanks as hard as he can. To make matters worse, Jeff suddenly feels extra weight on the line. As he pulls it up, it's covered with lemon sharks hungry for a feast. The angler takes decisive action. In an effort to shake the sharks, with a challenging full-body hoist, he gets his monster catch closer to shallow water. The strategy works, but now, worried his line will break, Jeff heads straight into the crashing surf. Everything depends on the next few seconds. He's got to wrangle the fish carefully. Thrashing in the white water, many fish spit the hook and speed off.
And I just run in, close and all, because it doesn't matter, because we've got to try and get the hand through the gills in case they're just lightly hooked. That's when they can escape with the power of the waves, their last effort to get away.
Reaching down for the writhing whopper, Jeff's skill pays off. Kite fishing mission accomplished. Stunned by the size of the fish, Jeff's certain it's a record. It's the heaviest snapper he's ever held.
I was the only one around, and I was yahooing to myself. When I went to lift the bin off the beach onto the bite, that's when I realised the weight of it.
Measured on shore, it's official. Over 15.5 kilos, 91 centimeters. One of the biggest snappers ever caught off the Taranaki coast. An incredible battle of man versus beast. Won by kite.
Word got around, I caught a really big one. I think about 10 people saw it within the hour.
For food fishermen like Jeff, such whopper catches offer proof of the sea's bounty in places where conditions are too extreme for anything but sustainable angling. As fish populations dwindle around the world from commercial overfishing, extreme angling may offer a clue to recovery and future species survival.
Innovative approaches that extract the animal that you want without taking the other things from the environment is definitely the wave of the future.
In the untamed oceans, in insane conditions, these brave anglers defy the odds, taking on the most daring challenges and colossal combat. As they face off against these astounding underworld creatures, we marvel at the most death-defying encounters of man versus amazing monster fish in Hooked Extreme Angling. A flying menace.
Good Lord.
An alien swarm. A projectile fish threatening our ecosystem.
We have to stop it before they stop us.
It may look harmless, but it's anything but.
These fish are actually up in your face. This head, solid bone, that's what gets you hurt.
These dangerous foreign species are determined to survive in a hostile takeover. And major American waterways may face total annihilation.
There's no real barrier to stop the fish from here moving into Lake Michigan.
For sportsmen, fishermen, and scientists, it's a race against time to stop an invasive destroyer on a rampage. Man versus explosive river crashers. Hooked. Asian Carp Invasion. Unwelcome foreign intruders, originally introduced by human hands. Escaped invasive species can turn a native ecosystem into an environmental catastrophe.
Years ago, a fish called the Asian carp was brought to American waters to solve a problem. But the big, hungry, and very prolific fish soon became a major problem itself.
Today, the U.S. faces one of the most alarming aliens ever. It's already here, threatening to decimate one of the Earth's largest waterways, the Mississippi River Basin. And now, these ecosystem invaders are headed towards an even more dangerous territory, the Great Lakes.
Species is rapidly approaching Lake Michigan.
Ravenous, fast breeding. If these alien species colonize the biggest freshwater system in America, they could cause devastation.
They've invaded nearly every waterway. Now they threaten the Great Lakes and its $7 billion industry.
As research teams race against time, one of the 21st century's most frightening environmental questions may be contained in a few samples of water.
And the trouble is we keep pushing the limits and we keep finding carp.
The intruder? A fish with a nasty habit. When threatened, it launches like a flying projectile. Can it be stopped? And where is it headed next?
They've took it over. They're not taking it over, they've took it over.
And that has some experts extremely concerned.
It's America versus Asian carp. September 15th, 1999, 225 kilometers from the Great Lakes, Chillicothe, Illinois. Commercial fisherman Orion Briney heads out on the Illinois River. For over 15 years, Orion's worked these waterways. Expecting buffalo fish and catfish, he pulls up his net, usually brimming with fish. On this day, it's almost empty, but not quite. Orion spots two fish fighting hard against the net, with odd-looking eyes set low on their heads.
What the heck is that? It's awful weird looking. Well, we caught the first one, we pulled it up. We thought we knew what we had. We thought it was like a big lake trout, or because sometimes your water gets real high, you catch a weird fish or two of some kind. Eyes on the bottom of their head, a little bitty scales on them.
Orion takes one of the mystery fish to a biologist.
What do you think that is? Never seen nothing like it before in my life.
One look, and the scientist knows Orion's catch all too well.
It's carp. It's carp? Asian carp. Asian carp. Sure ugly, aren't they? Oh, yeah.
It's a big-head carp, an unwelcome menace, more commonly known as Asian carp, and the first of what may be a thriving colony of ruthless aquatic terminators. Along with its sister species, the silver carp, Orion's big head is considered one of the most dangerous invasive creatures in America. The bad news travels fast.
As soon as biologists learned that these species had escaped from aquaculture ponds and were showing up in the nets of fishermen, red flags went up for every biologist.
In Orion's river, the invading bighead carp is perfectly designed for a hostile takeover. Able to reach as long as 1.5 meters and weigh as much as 45 kilograms. In their native Asia, they're Darwinian superstars, easily adapting to most rivers, lakes, and ponds. And as they move into U.S. rivers and start aggressively feeding on plankton, they devour the food chain from the bottom up. But where in Asia, natural predators kept these carp in check, the United States has no river contenders up to the challenge. It's a formula for disaster.
The Asian carp have a potential of devastating local fish populations because they're eating this food at the most basic level. It's suggested that they can eat anywhere from 40 to 80% of their body weight in a day.
And it gets worse. In addition to a ravenous appetite, the Asian carp's breeding rates are in the stratosphere. While most fish spawn once a year, Asian carp can spawn up to 3 times a year, producing as many as 2 million eggs. Breeding and feeding faster than any other native fish in the river, the Asian carp obliterates the competition.
The bighead and silver carp are a very scary threat because of their ability to invade an area so quickly. They will kick other fish, our native fish, out in a short amount of time.
But how did they get here? The answer is chilling. Like many invasive species, these dangerous intruders were deliberately brought by human hands. 50 years ago, in the 1960s, Midwest commercial fish farmers and water treatment authorities were looking to solve a problem: algae overgrowth. Their solution? Import an Asian fish species known for devouring algae, the grass carp.
Last summer, 1/3 of Robert Harrell's 70-acre lake was filled with water weeds. Harrell stocked the lake with carp, and his weed problems were practically solved in 2 months.
You can tell they have really done quite well. I believe we put 350 in here, and in just a little time, it was all gone.
It worked so well, a decade later, more catfish farmers fighting fishery overgrowth imported 2 other Asian carp species with the same taste for algae, the bighead and the silver carp. But what seemed like an ideal solution was an ecosystem ticking time bomb. Summer 1993. Torrential thunderstorms pound the American Midwest. 50,000 homes are damaged or destroyed. 1,000 levees fail. The end result is devastating, but there's an even more disastrous consequence. The normally disconnected rivers, lakes, and streams of the Mississippi River Basin flood together, forming one giant bathtub. To a then relatively obscure fish, it's the perfect escape. Captive carp find a path to freedom, riding floodwaters into open waterways, spawning fast and furious, swimming further into rivers and tributaries throughout the Midwest.
Brought to America to suck up algae and then escaped and multiplied, earning the nickname river rabbits.
An unnatural disaster had begun. Now, for the man who first found this terrifying alien species in his own backyard, the fish is freshwater public enemy #1. Soon after his first sighting, Orion watches an ecosystem under siege. The bighead is so much larger and stronger than native fish. None of the local fishermen have nets strong enough to hold the invaders.
The first year or two, I just don't want to fish for them. You could come out here and literally see 40 acres of them. There'd be so many you couldn't even run the motor through them. You start running your motor through them, and there'd be red blood behind you. went out there, you know, he was tearing them nets up. It wasn't very long after most of your fishermen quit fishing.
And there's more to this menace. With no natural predators in the Illinois River, the bighead multiply at astronomical rates, taking over and dominating the food chain. While alarmed Fish and Wildlife agencies try to strategize comprehensive solutions,
They are big, ugly, and abundant.
a nearby processing plant decides to harvest and sell Asian carp as food. In a desperate attempt to save his own livelihood, Orion modifies his gear to stand up to the aggressive invader.
I had the first nets built, and I was the first one on them.
Orion once harvested buffalo fish and catfish. Post-Asian carp invasion, the fish have all but disappeared. Orion's only solution? Change his business model. Make the alien species his catch. He recruits his stepson Jeremy and 13-year-old grandson Levi. Yet even with a team, Asian carp catching is challenging.
You know, it's just completely different ball game. You got to hold more nets. You got to make bigger nets.
July 9th, 2009, Chillicothe, Illinois. Orion and his two-boat crew head out to capture the invasive carp.
Man, we got fish already.
He reads the water, looking for signs of a pack of bighead below. The goal, net as many of this marauding threat as fast as possible. Orion knows these fish spook easily. They fly into the air at the first sign of noise and commotion, a fight-or-flight stress response that can dangerously injure fishermen. Skittish Asian carp scatter fast. Moving carefully, the boats will have to hit the right spot at the right moment.
You got to be real aggressive when you see them. I mean, you can't sit here and talk and tell, you know. You got to get right with it, get around them, and get them shut off, or they're gone. You say, well, I thought there was a bunch of fish there. Well, there was. But then they beat you.
Orion picks a spot in the middle of the river.
That's where they're at right here. Get ready.
The boats start dropping over 27,000 meters of net. Spreading out, they make their way towards shore, covering the river's entire width. But now, Orion's crew tries to gather the carp using one of the most primitive fishing techniques on Earth, noise. What the men are about to raise in their nets may be proof of a threat far greater than any fisherman's livelihood. An eco-disaster, a raging river invader breeding out of control. Chillicothe, Illinois, 225 kilometers from the Great Lakes. Fisherman Orion Briney and his team are on the hunt for an invasive Asian carp menace, the bighead. Now, with nets strategically placed across the width of the Illinois River, it's time to raise hell, literally. To herd the fish towards them, the crew stomps and bangs the boat's aluminum hulls. Beneath the waters, the distressed fish pick up the vibrations through organs that run along their sides, called neuromasts. Interpreting the vibrations as a predator on the hunt, fleeing bigheads swim straight for the nets.
They're very smart. Once they hear a noise, they're taking off. We run back and forth and try to bring them into a big school and herd them down, force them into the net.
Meter by meter, Orion's crew pulls up bursting nets. Now, to get the fish to market, it's a race against the sun's baking heat.
How we doing up here? How many we got left? A fish this size will hurt you. Fish this size will probably put you in the hospital if you was going up the river and break something, you know, or even knock you out of the boat, and then there you are.
That's a dandy.
4 hours and 15 nets later, thousands of invasive bighead Asian carp pack the holds of Orion's boats.
That's less than half the size of that big one.
It's all slimy. Here you go, Levi.
From ship to truck, it's an hour-and-a-half drive to one of the few processing plants with the capacity to handle enormous volumes of Asian carp. Here, the fish are unloaded and weighed.
20,944 big heads, 81 carp. Just right.
Today's catch, over 9,000 kilograms. It's a good harvest for what's become an unexpected family business, doing battle with an alien species.
It's fun going out and just getting to hang out with your grandpa and your uncle. It's just a blast.
Fishing's my favorite thing to do. It's probably the only thing I'll ever do, hopefully, with any luck.
Well, anytime we catch a bunch of fish, it's exciting. You know, they get excited, I get excited.
Some of Orion's catch will be filleted and packed for distribution to overseas markets. There, the fish are consumed as food. But in the U.S., there's a problem. Asian carp flesh is filled with tiny bones. The U.S. market for these bony fish as human food is non-existent. Yet many fear, unless we start eating Asian carp by the truckload, we have no chance of stopping their onslaught. And while commercial fishermen struggle to stay in business, according to biologist Dwayne Chapman, exporting these fish as fast as they can be caught isn't enough. It's hardly making a dent in an invasive disaster threatening a continent.
Orion is just one fisherman, and 20,000 pounds of fish is nothing. I estimate that last year, about 2 million pounds of fish were captured, bighead and silver carp together, for market. And that is not a drop in the bucket.
Many scientists fear the invasive eco-destruction is getting worse by the day. And although in 2007, U.S. Fish and Wildlife made it illegal to import or breed silver carp, bighead and black carp have yet to be federally banned, even as populations continue to grow. July 12, 2009, Havana, Illinois, over 300 kilometers from the Great Lakes, the so-called Asian carp capital. Here, the ongoing carp invasion has created such dense populations, boaters are forced to be vigilant, always on the lookout for a rampaging species just as menacing as the bighead, the silver carp. With their notorious hair-trigger fear response, some compare a silver carp collision to being hit by a bowling ball at several kilometers an hour.
I'm a big guy, I'm about 6'6", but it doesn't, that doesn't make much difference to the carp. They will take you out when you're driving around.
Oh, we got two in the boat.
I've been hit pretty hard a couple times.
As one of the world's top invasive fish experts, Dwayne Chapman is leading the charge in the battle against this leaping aquatic threat.
I've been eating, breathing, sleeping these fish, trying to get under their skin, try to figure out everything I can about them in order to know my enemy. Hi, Kevin.
Come aboard.
Today, as part of a fact-finding mission tracking invading silver carp on the move, Dwayne and fellow biologist Kevin Irons board a specially rigged boat designed for a unique task, electrofishing.
This is our electrofishing boat. We use it for routine surveying of fish. You can go to a spot, you put roughly about 5,000 watts worth of electricity into the water. It'll temporarily stun the fish, where biologists can then dip them up.
Yeah, here's a big mouth.
Electrofishing is one way scientists take sample inventories of all the fish species competing for survival in a river. For every fish they net, they note its species, size, and weight, evaluating the overall health of both natives and invasives. As the team works, they face the silver carp's explosive defense strategy.
Protect yourself.
Fish leaping by the hundreds,
Good Lord.
reaching as high as 3 meters.
And it's just a fright response. Anything that scares them, and they tend to go airborne. And they can jump at speeds of probably at least 20 knots or so.
Although Asian carp have infiltrated rivers from Louisiana to Minnesota, today, Dwayne focuses his investigation here on the Illinois. So close to the Great Lakes, this is a critical front line against an eco-catastrophe. Dwayne wants to know how the invaders are thriving and migrating. His ultimate goal? Zero population.
This is the paddlefish. It's one of the filter feeding fishes that we're trying to protect by controlling the bighead and silver carp. They're really odd looking prehistoric fish, been around for a long time. It'd be a real shame to have these guys get hurt by this and by the invading bighead and silver carp. Okay, let's get them back in the water.
Keeping the juice on, the shocker arms release steady electric jolts. The jolts successfully stun the bulk of the Asian carp below. Yet the fastest fish react by taking to the air. Whoa. Soon, the team hits the mother lode.
When you get them coming in, it's all you can do to dodge and get your hands up. You want to protect yourself.
But the biologists have no idea lurking below is concrete evidence of a river apocalypse already in progress. The Illinois River, 317 kilometers from the Great Lakes. Electrofishing biologists Dwayne Chapman and Kevin Irons reach a dense patch of flying invasive silver carp and release paralyzing electric currents.
I got it, Megan.
The day's sampling effort only brings up a fraction of what swims dangerously beneath. In the past, when water levels dipped to extreme lows, electroshocking triggered an Asian carp hurricane.
It's like being inside a popcorn popper. You know, there's just fish everywhere. Only the difference is that the fish can, you know, instead of being little kernels of popcorn, you've got fish that range from 6 inches up to 25 pounds that are flying through the air.
But today, they're about to discover something far more frightening.
556.
Measuring the weight and length of the stunned fish, the biologists note something unusual. Instead of a normal rounded body shape, these silver carp are long and narrow.
And this particular fish, as you can see, it's kind of flat across the top. It kind of reaches the top, a point right there behind the head, and it's kind of flat from there on back. This fish should be rounded.
It's a bad sign. To the scientists' trained eyes, the silver carp are starving. The implications are grave. When it comes to feeding, silver carp are top-notch competitors. They muscle out almost all other species.
Bighead and silver carp are the most highly advanced filter feeding fishes in freshwater in the world. And so it's pretty hard for our native fishes to compete with that.
If top competitor silver carp are starving, native fish species don't stand a chance. It's how an invasive like the Asian carp wreaks havoc, feeding until there's nothing left to feed on, starving out all other species, eventually starving themselves. The only solution is to move on to the next waterway and food supply. Here, it's the beginning of the end of the once vital Illinois River, and the beginning of the end of America's freshwater fisheries. After dedicating much of his career to the Asian carp scourge, Dwayne believes the electrofishing evidence reveals a crisis now reaching a critical mass, a crisis that might have been prevented.
When they hit the Illinois River and Missouri River, the populations just skyrocketed. All of a sudden, we had tons of fish.
In hindsight, we could have and should have prevented their arrival in North America.
The statistics are terrifying. With silver and bighead carp, the most dangerous invasive offenders, Asian carp species currently make up an astonishing 80% of the total upper Mississippi River Basin's biomass, roughly 2,500 fish for every kilometer of river. Populations so enormous, some speculate a total takeover may be impossible to stop.
Carp are right there knocking at the door. So we need to do something soon.
September 10th, 2009. At the Aquatic Center for Conservation at the University of Notre Dame, Professor David Lodge heads an invasive species task force. As an Asian carp Armageddon looms, the task force is fighting back with a cutting-edge tool.
For invasive species in lakes and rivers, one of the big challenges is often just figuring out where the darn organisms are. And it's like searching for a needle in a haystack.
Dr. Lodge and his team have developed a solution for finding the needle in the haystack, locating Asian carp without having to catch a single fish. It's called environmental DNA testing. Just as CSI teams collect DNA samples from criminal evidence, Dr. Lodge's team tests water samples for traces of Asian carp DNA. If they get a positive hit, Asian carp have passed through the test sample's water source. Using this method, the team can test large bodies of water relatively quickly. It's an efficient diagnostic tool that's never been used to fight an invasive aquatic species until now.
The hard work is done back in the laboratory, but that too is relatively quick compared to the effort required to electroshock or net fish in a lake or a river. Yep, so I think that still sounds like what we want to do is start upstream, get the most urgent information first.
Armed with breakthrough genetic detection, Professor Lodge's team heads to what may be the single most dangerous Asian carp frontline, the Chicago Sanitary and Ship Canal. In 1900, to prevent sewage from entering Lake Michigan, contaminating the city's drinking water, the city of Chicago came up with an idea, reversing the direction of the Chicago River. The result? An ingenious feat of engineering called the Sanitary and Ship Canal. Today, the canal is an important route for cargo ships. But when humans connected the Mississippi River Basin to Lake Michigan, no one predicted that they were building a disastrous invasive species superhighway.
The Great Lakes have on the order of 186 species that are non-native, many of which are damaging.
And there are dreaded cautionary tales. One exotic species already doing major environmental and economic damage is the zebra mussel. After hitching rides from Europe in the ballasts of cargo ships, these mollusks have quickly multiplied and clogged up industrial pipes. They must be routinely cleaned, exterminated, and monitored.
Zebra mussels caused the shutdown of the Monroe Power Plant in Michigan, which cost millions of dollars.
To many, the ongoing zebra mussel plight is a warning. Similar stories, like the Chinese snakehead fish found in Maryland in 2002, all sound an urgent alarm. In a global economy of international trade and human intervention, far worse invasive scourges are to come.
These things are being transported by the thousands every day on the planet in planes and ships. This is one of the most damaging environmental changes that's been going on since humans started moving species.
Here, 30 miles from the entrance to the Great Lakes, the team picks a strategic spot. It's downstream from the last line of man-made defense, an electric underwater fence. In 2002, authorities installed rows of steel cables across a section of the Chicago Sanitary and Ship Canal. Today, volts of DC current flow from the cables into the water, delivering harmless but critical fish-repelling shocks. When it comes to stopping the northward migration of the invasive Asian carp, this single electric fence may stand between control and catastrophe. But many experts fear the barrier's far from foolproof. Is it truly enough to stop an invader from river domination?
The barrier needs to be turned off every 6 months for a short period of time to rehabilitate it. If you turn off the thing and they're sitting there at the door, they're going to swim through.
Back in the lab, the team submits their samples for DNA tests. What the water reveals is shocking.
The Asian carps were several miles upstream from where people had thought they were. It was exciting to discover that we learned something important. On the other hand, it was depressing because the problem is so much more acute than we thought previously.
It's confirmed. Carp are less than 11 kilometers from the electric fence barrier.
All that separates the silver carp from the Great Lakes now is one lock and the electric barrier that the Army Corps of Engineers has installed.
What began as a field test now becomes an urgent investigation. The next critical test location is the Chicago River. Lindsay Chatterton with the Great Lakes Project heads up the investigation.
So we are in downtown Chicago. This is the last lock through which boats pass to get into Lake Michigan itself.
Discovering Asian carp DNA here would mean disaster. If there's a positive hit, it's proof the fish have gone further and slipped past the electric barrier.
I think these fish are much further up the system than anyone previously thought, and really we don't know how far up they are.
Targeting backwater pockets where DNA collects, the team fills 2-liter bottles, noting location, depth, and temperature.
There's no real barrier to stop the fish from here moving into Lake Michigan, so we clearly don't want to find them here.
Back at the lab, the clock is ticking on a potential environmental time bomb. The team puts the samples on ice to slow any DNA degradation and begins testing for Asian carp DNA.
I hope and pray that they won't see anything upstream from the barrier.
But while Dr. Lodge's lab team waits for results,
Focus your chi, Tim. Do what? Focus your chi. I think that's some kind of Zen thing, isn't it?
over 160 kilometers away, some anglers are taking a more direct approach.
Let's hit it, brother.
Fighting an invasive killer head on.
All right, guys, here we go.
August 22nd, 2009, 251 kilometers from the Great Lakes, Peoria, Illinois. Zach Naden is a lifelong fisherman and pioneer of an unconventional catch technique, aerial bow fishing.
It's like, oh my God, I can't believe I shot a fish out of the air. I mean, it's so unorthodox. Ah! These fish are actually up in your face, and you know, it's like a combative sport.
Take that. I think I got Big Louie hooked.
Both Zach and fellow bow fisher Tim Wells are avid outdoorsmen. Though to some their technique is highly controversial. When projectile silver carp swarmed their river, conventional rod and reels were useless. These invasive fish are filter feeders who do not take hooked bait. So the anglers decided to up the ante.
We came up with these specifically for shooting these fish. Nobody really had any equipment for shooting them out of the air. As you can see, it's small, it's compact, it's about 3.5 pounds, carbon arrow. And this reel here has got all the line here in the bottle.
Come on, boys, say cheese.
Zach and Tim scour the river for pockets of aerial intruders.
I smell blood in the water, brother.
Let's get it, man, let's get it.
Fish on! Cheer up, cheer up, cheer up. Oh!
But against carp hordes hurtling out of the water, even seasoned fishermen risk wrecking their equipment.
Oh, that didn't take long.
Look at her, she's still spinning. Oh, man. Doggone it.
Or suffering a knockout blow.
The coolest part about this kind of bow fishing is coming home alive and with all your teeth.
Oh, my God. Ah!
Suddenly, the archers reach a bursting pack of silver carp.
Oh, keep it going, Chase, in a circle. Oh. Circle the thing, Chase. Oh, my God. Ah! Oh, man. Oh! Holy moly. This is Godzilla. Holy. Oh.
Fish Fish on, fish on, fish on!
Peoria, Illinois, 251 kilometers from the Great Lakes. Bow fishermen Zach Naden and Tim Wells have arrows at the ready, hunting invasive carp across the Illinois River.
Fish on, fish on!
Now they're facing a high-energy upheaval known as popcorning.
Oh my God! Oh, man! The popcorn is just, it's a feeling of total loss of control.
Oh my God!
You have no idea what's coming next, whether you're gonna make it out, where you're gonna get hit. It's, you just gotta kind of grit your teeth and bear it. That's what we're looking for there, folks. That's, whoa! Slow us down, Chase, slow us down.
Zach fires his bow.
Fish on, fish
A direct
on, fish
hit.
on. Boom shakalaka!
Reeling in the line, Zach heaves his catch on board. It's a monster.
Man, now that's a fish.
That's a giant. Wow. That's one of the bigger ones we've taken this year.
Dude, that's about the biggest as they get, man. That's, you're
Wow.
right at the record right there.
We've got a giant Asian silver carp.
Hold him out here in the sun. He's over 25.
He's over 25 pounds easy. Easy. He's probably about 34, 35 inches long. Just solid muscle. His head, solid bone. Solid bone. That's what gets you hurt when they jump in. That's what you feel when these fish hit you.
It's just one fish, but it's also just the beginning.
Oh, yeah. Look at that.
Zach and Tim routinely land 100 carp in a single afternoon.
Fish on! Oh!
Though some may find their methods brutal, and it's no solution to a massive problem. To the sportsman, it's a direct way to kill at least a few specimens of an environmental menace, threatening an entire ecosystem, one fish at a time.
I got him, boy. Come on in here.
9 out of every 10 fish right now is an Asian carp. So that's the problem we're facing right now.
Oh my God!
September 11th, 2009, back at South Bend, Indiana's University of Notre Dame. Scientists know all too well it will take far more extreme measures to end the Asian carp blight. Using their unique forensics DNA testing, Dr. David Lodge and his Invasive Species Task Force await the results of the latest water sample. It's devastating news. Some of the samples test positive for Asian carp DNA. Asian carp have breached the electronic barrier.
The trouble with the work we've been doing is we keep pushing the limits and we keep finding carp.
But identifying traces of DNA just past the barrier doesn't yet prove a critical mass of fish have infiltrated Lake Michigan. Further evidence is needed. Facing this nightmare scenario, Dr. Lodge's team heads out to find answers to this alarming and now pressing question. Are they arriving at an ecological crime scene too late? Are the fish already colonizing Lake Michigan? University of Notre Dame researcher Chris Jurdy leads the sampling effort on Lake Michigan.
A carp positive out here would cause a lot of concern because this is the whole point, is to prevent them from getting into Lake Michigan.
I think it would be a big surprise and a terrible thing if they were able to get any DNA in Lake Michigan.
If the team gets a positive hit in Lake Michigan, it reveals a breach of the most disturbing threshold yet, a gateway to the entire Great Lakes, the largest freshwater ecosystem on Earth. Yet as an eco-catastrophe hangs in the balance, anglers from all over the country flock to the Illinois River to take up a fight they take personally. Here, on the banks of a river under siege, the battle lines are drawn, and the war rages in a competition called the Redneck Tournament.
It's just unbelievable what these fish have done. You could go out boat riding. We took the kids out, went tubing down the river. They've taken all that away from us.
If they hit the Great Lakes and start destroying that the same way that they have destroyed life in the Illinois River, we don't have a chance. We have to stop it before they stop us.
The goal of the tournament is to catch as many airborne carp as possible. Determined, these anglers risk life, limb, and teeth. Rival teams adopt playful names, but their cause is serious. Here, bow fishermen Zach and Tim compete as the maggot eaters. And though the impact on the Asian carp scourge may be insignificant, for them and others, it's a way to raise awareness and take personal action.
Well, we got to do our part for conservation. You know, everything else is dying because of these fish, so we like to try to get as many out of the river as we can.
Are we ready? Don't hang legs over the side.
Now, lined up on shore, the teams wait for the start.
There we go!
As the countdown begins for one of the world's most original, if controversial, fishing contests, people arm themselves with baseball bats and nerve against a fish that seems to rain upwards into the sky. A vision fit for a biblical plague.
They just fly at you and you really don't know when they're gonna hit you in the face or in the shoulder or come in your boat and bleed everywhere.
$106. 106. Dude, that's double.
This year, the bow-wielding maggot eaters are determined not to go down without a fight.
We got second last year. We're trying to improve.
106 fish.
You gotta be kidding me.
The maggot eaters tie with Team Showtime.
106. Are you serious?
This year's bragging rights will have to be shared.
Hey, wait, I gotta go check the boat. There might be one more underneath the battery.
In the spirit of victory, it's easy to forget the environmental stakes. In total, competitors typically net over 1,500 carp in a matter of hours. Proof these alien fish are multiplying, destroying the river. But using the competition's haul, two men are determined to make a difference. By day, Dr. John Holden and Dr. Tim Leeds work as reproductive specialists. By night, they've invented a massive food processor capable of transforming carp into a crop.
This becomes this. This we sell. At 1,200 pounds of fish will turn into about 400 pounds of fish meal.
The fish are ground up and flash dried, generating almost zero waste. The Heartland processor then converts the tournament haul into two byproducts, oil and powder. The oil is low mercury and rich in omega-3 fatty acids, perfect for nutritional supplements. The powder is a high-protein fish meal, perfect for making commercial fish farm feed pellets.
People consider it a junk fish, so no one wants to fish it, no one wants to eat it. Well, with our machine, we just grind up the bones. That's a source of calcium.
The end product is 14% oil, 5% water, and the remainder is protein.
The processor can handle roughly 2 metric tons of fish an hour, and it's mobile. The doctors hope someday to put it right below the Chicago Sanitary and Ship Canal's electric barrier. From there, they envision moving downriver, harvesting tons of Asian carp as they go.
Using that model, we can get 800 million pounds of carp out over 5 years.
But is the Heartland processor enough to keep a spreading scourge from destroying an American ecosystem? The answer may depend on whether it's too late to stop the Asian carp and where the invasive fish are headed next. On the eve of a disaster, as the Asian carp threatens to invade the U.S. Great Lakes, ironically, in the fish's native China, near Shanghai, overfishing in dams are pushing bighead and silver carp to extinction. To compensate, billions of Asian carp are now farm-raised.
These species constitute about 80% of all farmed freshwater fish production in China. These fish are the staple of the population of China.
In Chinese markets, Asian carp are a valued delicacy. Kept alive as long as possible,
When the heart stops beating, it brings a lower price. It's because it's so important in China to keep fish fresh.
Fresh carp is made into a traditional fish head soup. But stateside, despite urgent headlines of the Asian carp menace, the problem of American tastes persists. Few people here are willing to eat the bony fish, yet the cost of exporting live carp to China is prohibitively expensive, and efforts to bring the carp into contained U.S. fish farms have only ended in disaster. So disastrous, biologist Dwayne Chapman argues Asian carp escaped into the American wild almost as soon as they arrived, long before the infamous Midwestern flood breaches of the 1990s.
We had well-established populations of big-headed silver carp and grass carp in the wild long before those floods. There were very likely many, many escapes because people weren't being very careful. It was a general feeling that these fish were not like our fish. The rivers that they were established in China were not like our rivers, and that we had all these big predators that would eat them up were they to escape, and all of that turned out to be hogwash, frankly.
It's another chilling cautionary tale against human intervention in nature. Today, Dwayne and others continue to fight on the ever-expanding front lines. But some predict, unless and until U.S. demand for Asian carp increases, keeping up with their breakneck spawning will be impossible. The carp population will continue to grow exponentially, invading new turf each day. Ultimately, we may be forced into a far more macabre solution. Some authorities are convinced no strategy is complete without a deadly plan of attack.
They're devastating the ecology.
Poison.
Poisons like rotenone have been used very effectively in many parts of the world to eradicate populations of unwanted fishes. But you must have a high willingness to accept losses of many other species. We do know how to kill Asian carps. We don't know how to kill them without killing lots of other things.
To date, poison has been used in limited quantities near the electric fence barrier. But as the clock on these spreading carp is ticking, far more aggressive and deadly measures may be all we have left. And now, one of the 21st century's most frightening environmental questions is contained in a few samples of water. Have the tenacious alien fish made it into the $7 billion fishery and ecosystem of Lake Michigan on their way to the Great Lakes?
We have never hoped for negative results more in our life, because it would say that we haven't detected anything this high up.
The results are in. Some samples taken from Lake Michigan test positive for Asian carp DNA. Asian carp have breached the electronic barrier and reached Lake Michigan. As alarms sound across the country, it's just the beginning. If Asian carp spawn reaching a critical mass in the Great Lakes, the effects will be catastrophic. If history is any indicator, it would be an ecosystem nightmare. Asian carp devour all plankton, leaving native fish like bass and walleye to starve. In addition, they digest only half the plant matter they eat, excreting waste that can cause a polluting scourge called algae blooms, clogging the water, killing fish, and destroying human drinking water. A $7 billion fishery could swiftly face decimation. And in time, the fish could move on to their next freshwater target.
You got to care about what's happening to your grandkids' resources as well. And we sure don't want to see anything like that. The Asian carp population explosion in the Great Lakes. It would be a disaster.
It's a vision of invasive species hell. Those trying to stop it share an urgent goal: fight Asian carp by any means necessary. an invasive assault, already threatening to bring the Mississippi River Basin to the brink of eco-destruction. Now, the Great Lakes face the same deadly fate. But scientists and fishermen refuse to back down, doing whatever it takes to end the Asian carp invasion. Catfish grappling.
When that fish starts spinning, them gills and all will just rip you open. The caveman done it, the Indians done it. It's a matter of survival.
Shark wrangling. Flying fish fighting.
Well, that fish come out of nowhere and got me in the eye.
It's about like getting hit with a bowling ball.
And rescuing beasts by the boatload. It's some of the world's most extreme encounters of man versus fish. On Caught Barehanded. From America's swampland to the oceans of Papua New Guinea to Sardinia's Mediterranean shores, since man's roamed the earth, he's fished for food, sport, and survival. For most, the tools are rod and reel, spear and net. For some, it's personal. They fish barehanded. Battered, bloody, and bitten raw. To catch whopper fish, they use extraordinary bait, their own hands. And when these obsessed fishermen face a cutthroat competition, it's no pain, no gain. June 2007, Pauls Valley, Oklahoma. For one of the world's oddest sports, this is the Olympics, the annual Okie Noodling tournament.
Yeah, we try to bring our family every year. We just came to see the fish and touch it.
Noodling, tickling, grabbling, or hogging, whatever you call it, it's catfish wrangling. Diving into hidden layers, holding their breath, using nothing more than fingers, hands, even whole arms. Fishermen track, stalk, and haul up river Goliaths.
I got part of it. Tell me, what's more challenging than you getting in the water, catching this fish with your bare hands, and coming up with it?
Noodling has ancient roots. Native American fishermen used diverse fishing methods, including grappling. Early accounts describe them diving into riverbeds, wriggling cloths to entice big fish with their bare hands. And noodlers today speculate on a far more primitive history.
You know, it's barbaric, a lot of people say, cavemanish. Well, hey, if I was a caveman, I think I could survive, just from, you know, what we know how to do.
And it all comes down to a battle against a whopper, the North American freshwater catfish. Native to rivers and lakes west of the Appalachian Mountains, catfish average nearly a meter long and can easily reach 20 kilograms. Quick and cunning, these whiskered catfish feed voraciously, eating vast quantities and growing non-stop. Some live as long as 30 years, and record catfish have even stretched 1.5 meters, weighing more than 40 kilograms. It all adds up to a fish with tremendous mass and might.
When he's in that water, he's got more strength than you've got. It's just like a tornado on your hands and arms. He gets to spinning, he'll just twist you up. You can't hold him.
But it's the way these catfish breed that makes noodling possible. In summer, the females lay eggs inside holes, rocky nooks, hollow logs, and man-made boxes built by noodlers. Astoundingly, for each kilogram of body weight, a spawning female can lay over 2,000 eggs. That means a 45-kilogram catfish can release an incredible 100,000 eggs in a single spawn. And once the female deposits the eggs, the males protect them from predators with fierce determination.
All he's trying to do is bite at you and make you leave the hoe so that you don't get to the babies.
To an egg-guarding catfish, a noodler's wriggling hand may be food or foe. Either way, the catfish bites down hard. For the noodler, the battle's just begun. And these fishermen have to battle other hidden hazards. gnawing beavers, snapping turtles, and poisonous snakes also lurk in these muddy waters. The noodler's credo? No hooks, no bait, no fear.
You ask people about noodling, oh, they're crazy, they're stupid, they're idiots. We're not idiots. We catch a lot of fish and we have a lot of fun.
Friday, June 29, 2007. Evening falls on Oklahoma. At the stroke of 7:30, the tournament begins. These Okie noodling competitors have exactly 24 hours to grapple one of Oklahoma's baddest bottom dwellers and race to make it back in time for a 7:30 evening weigh-in at Bob's Pig Shop. To prove their catch is fresh, most haul in live specimens and store them in tanks bigger than bathtubs. Grapplers can compete in two categories, natural or scuba. Natural noodling is strictly equipment-free, while scuba allows for any type of underwater breathing apparatus. Noodlers can use springs to hold their catches and bring them out of the water, and they can wear protective gloves. But many keep it barehanded. Today, taking the biggest fish will come down to skill, luck, strength, and a will to win. In this tough competition, 4 rivals are top contenders. Don Brewer, a die-hard noodler with a passion and a high-tech edge.
You can catch the bigger fish. You can find the deeper holes and stay down there with them.
Howard Ramsey and Gary Webb, 2 Missouri grapplers on a mission.
We're going to show them Oklahoma boys that some old Missouri boys can catch some fish.
And cigar-toting local legend, Lee McFarland.
My dad and relatives and uncles, we all went together. It's just a family tradition.
I told him, now he can out-noodle me, and he's great.
Family catfish dinners are a chance for the McFarland clan to swap war stories and fan the flames for future generations.
When I pulled out my hand, it was just gushing blood. And right then and there, I was like, I gotta get this fish.
I hated fish back then. They were disgusting. Dad finally talked me into going fishing with him, and so I went. After that, I was hooked. It was just a bonding moment for me and my dad.
I didn't think a girl would do it, but she's getting pretty good at it.
Hopefully I can trade to my kids and they can train their kids.
As a sport, grappling's growing fast. Since the first Okie noodling tournament in 2000, the event now draws more than 3,000 spectators, and more fishermen sign up each year, well over 100 registered competitors. Who will win as they all prepare to do battle barehanded?
That was quick.
More than 10,000 kilometers away in Papua New Guinea, fish wrangling's a life-threatening ancient art where men lure deadly predators barehanded. They are shark callers. New Ireland Province, about 600 kilometers off the coast of mainland Papua New Guinea. Here in the southwest Pacific Ocean, fishing's a way of life. But one fishing tradition is extremely dangerous. Shark callers go out to lure and kill a live shark. Village men do it to win honor and respect and to catch food.
The shark can bite your hand if you're not careful.
They get many people and they die.
Daniel Soka, the village chief, insists that shark calling is a skill that must be passed down through the generations.
Shark callers need to know exactly how to do it right. He must learn special skills from his father or grandfather.
Today, the tradition's dying out. Most young men are now exposed to modern practices and have abandoned ancient techniques and daring rituals. But a few dedicated shark callers remain, keeping the tradition alive. In these teeming waters, a caller might find himself face to face with a giant reef shark, a 3-meter hammerhead, or a massive mako weighing hundreds of kilograms. Big sharks make for a big meal, but for centuries, ancient shark callers also believed these monster fish carried the spirits of dead ancestors. When a shark comes to them, they believe these ancestors are responding to their call.
These people live their entire lives on the sea. They've had an opportunity to experiment, learn, discover. They probably know more than most scientists about what attracts a shark.
To prepare a shark calling, the young boys in the village help carve a noose-shaped shark trap. The noose connects to a large propeller-shaped piece of wood that floats next to the boat. As the shark swims into the trap, the noose is tightened around it. The propeller's buoyancy keeps the shark from going under. Blaze Old has performed shark callings for over 20 years. He's ready to go out again. 6 a.m., the day of Blaze's shark calling. He begins his hunt. He has little room for provisions like food and water in the narrow boat, bringing only the trap, a bait stick, a shell, and a rattle.
This is the way to return.
Unique shark anatomy makes this unusual practice possible. Sharks are extraordinarily sensitive to sound. Equipped with vibration sensors under their skin called neuromasts, these homing devices work like human nerve endings, allowing sharks to pick up any disturbance in the water, including sound waves. Zeroing in with pinpoint precision, sharks will investigate any commotion that might signal injured prey.
Shark callers capture sharks by attracting them sonically. They rattle coconut husks, and that sounds underwater like a struggling fish, or even the stridulation, that is, the rubbing together of lobster parts.
Knowing this, Blaze mimics a shark's next meal, singing, thrashing, and rattling for the biggest monster he can find, ready to wrangle him with bare hands. Minutes stretch into hours, and still no shark as night falls. Blaze returns to shore only to resume his hunt the next morning. At last, a sudden dip in a floating log indicates a shark feeding beneath. Using his fish bait, Blaze lures the shark into the noose trap. It's a reef shark, over 5 feet long. In the trap, the struggling shark hovers dangerously close to the canoe. Blaze tightens the noose carefully. Tie it too loosely, and the shark could break free and attack. Finally, after exhausting days in the open water, tirelessly luring sharks, Blaze summons his training and his courage. The shark caller delivers a final fatal blow. Now, Blaze pulls the shark on board and blows his horn, alerting the community of his success.
I feel happy. I feel happy when I catch shark.
Later, the shark caller shares his catch in a village celebration. Women prepare the shark as food, as villagers dance and sing in honor of the calling. In a melding of ancient tradition and modern economy, shark calling brings this remote village an unexpected benefit: tourism.
Tourism is one of the moneymakers for this community. They come and see people catch shark, and that is how we make money.
With Blaze, a sacred tradition continues another generation. But as commercial fisheries overfish local waters, sharks and other species grow scarce. And as native customs struggle to survive in a modern world, Papua New Guinea's brave shark callers may soon exist only in legend. Daring anglers risk everything fighting for the biggest catfish caught barehanded. The annual Oki Noodling competition is on. 7:30 a.m. June 30th. Across Oklahoma, noodling hand fishermen dive half naked into rivers, lakes, and swamps to prove they're the best. For the next 12 hours, these passionate competitors will use flesh, fingers, and forearms to lure and grab biting flathead catfish. But to win, these competitors have to contend with a raging Mother Nature. Record rainfalls flooding rivers and lakes across the state. For noodlers, rising water levels are a formula for disaster, forcing them to dive deeper, holding their breath longer.
If everybody's got the water we've got, it's gonna be hard noodling. It's gonna be a hard contest. How in the world can you predict what Mother Nature's gonna do?
Kilometers away, noodlers Howard Ramsey and Gary Webb face an additional challenge, finding the right spot.
We're only about 50 miles from Grand Lake up there, Gary. Yeah.
The Missouri Grabblers traveled hundreds of kilometers to compete in Oklahoma, where noodling's legal. For them, hand fishing's an inalienable right and a political cause. Hoping to legalize the sport nationwide, Howard formed the Missouri-based grassroots group, Noodlers Anonymous.
These fish belong to the citizens of Missouri, and we should have the right to catch them. We're going to continue to fight it.
Informal meetings raise awareness and solidarity amongst devoted noodlers and their families.
I'm doing it for my grandkids too, because I want them to get in the water and enjoy their next 48 years as much as I've enjoyed my last 48 years.
If you're not bleeding, you're not hand fishing.
But for the team, unfamiliarity with Oklahoma waters, combined with torrential rains today, may be their undoing. Missouri noodlers typically fish in rivers, but these strong currents are overwhelming.
I think these are up way too much, Gary.
We may have to do something different on this trip.
We'll find someplace to get in the water.
Each added centimeter of rain makes finding deep burrowing catfish more challenging and dangerous. During spawning season, catfish tirelessly seek out remote hidden lairs. In particular, male catfish possess a powerful instinct to build nests, lure females, and protect egg clutches as far from prying predators as possible. For catfish, the deeper they burrow inside nooks and crannies, the better. For hand fishermen, the same survival mechanism poses a daunting challenge. Now, hunting blind in muddy waters, Howard, his daughter Julie, and Gary are hoping experience and superior teamwork will give them the edge they need.
Hand fishing is teamwork. You've got to have somebody there. It's dangerous to go by yourself.
Like Howard and Gary, most noodlers work in teams. Noodlers know their biggest risk is drowning. As one grappler dives below, the spotter above can sometimes hold more than his partner's ankles. He can hold his life in his hands.
No fish is worth the chance of somebody's life, although I've had a couple of close calls.
Anytime you go underwater, you need somebody there to make sure what you're doing underwater. You're right. Nobody home.
Gary dives down while Howard's ready at a signal to help block a fighting cat's escape or give Gary a boost out of a tough scrape.
It's a damn good hole. He's clear into his waist. If he's been down very long, then I'm going down to see what's going on.
Gary kicks, but the fish gets away, yanking its jaws from Gary's grasp. Catfish have thick mouths lined with strong muscles built for bottom trawling and feeding on big, fleshy fish. The same muscles enable them to open their jaws extremely wide, swallowing human arms with little distress. Once they bite down, the proficient hunters use their gaping mouths to powerful effect.
Got me good.
Fighting their captors, writhing and twisting to get away. Some noodlers wear regulation-permitted gloves. But even with protection, pulling off a biting catfish takes a tolerance for pain.
There's no way around it. That fish is going to bite you and he's got teeth. That's going to pull the skin off your hands.
At last, the Missouri grabblers gather their catches. After more than 4 hours scouting, diving, and hand fishing blind, they've scored a few mature adults, but it's a disappointing start. Past tournament winners have noodled fish weighing over 25 kilograms. Gary and Howard's small specimens send them back into the waters looking for bigger conquests. As the Okie Noodling tournament continues, there's still 7 hours left to go, and winning may come down to grappling at the right place at the right time. But today, as the sport's popularity grows, scientists wonder if grappling is cause for alarm. Since noodlers pull guarding catfish away from their eggs, some question the sport's impact on fish populations. Are noodlers destroying the very species they stalk? In the noodling world, Dana Winkleman's both sportsman and scientist, a biologist who studied catfish populations for years. To ensure big fish and overall healthy populations remain abundant, Dana works with noodlers in the field, keeping an eye on sizes, quotas, and catch techniques.
Any kind of fishing, you need to monitor and sort of keep an eye on it and watch the population. Thank you.
This year, Dana's also working with a team of biologists at the tournament's weigh station. As the competition wears on, noodlers bring in catches, while experts from Oklahoma State University weigh them, recording the data for ongoing records and research. Comparing measurements over time will help scientists determine whether catfish are endangered, diminishing in size or number. Ultimately, biologists like Dana Winkleman believe noodling's built-in dangers protect the catfish population most of all.
There's not enough people that have that drive to go out and put their hands into holes and things like that. With noodling, so few people do it, so the overall effect on the fish population is probably fairly negligible.
And with quotas in place, as long as noodling remains legal in some states, anglers like the Okie Noodling competitors will grapple for food as they have for centuries.
If I can teach you this sport, you can survive, and your family will live. And it's a matter of how it was all handed down. I mean, the caveman done it, the Indians done it. It's a matter of survival.
Around the world, one dangerous species defies the laws of gravity, even when it's caught barehanded. When an alien predator threatens an ecosystem, anglers fight back. The only catch? This fish can fly. August, Bath, Illinois. In a renegade spirit, these hand fishermen take to the Illinois River in open boats, churning the waters, making a racket. It's the raucous Redneck Tournament.
You tell people about this, they don't believe it. You have to actually be here to see it.
Local citizen Betty DeFord founded the Redneck Tournament in 2005 after a family boating trip turned into a flying fish disaster. From the beginning, the tournaments had one sworn goal: stop an invading bully in its tracks. Under these waters lurks a slimy, scaly menace, the Asian carp. Like many invasive species, they're the ultimate unwelcome guests, depleting natural resources and multiplying with terrifying speed. In a wild test of nerve, these anglers are ready to do battle with boats and bare hands. Asian carp course below by the thousands, but when these fish feel threatened, they catapult.
What's it like when it's really cooking out there? It is like raining fish. I've seen them 25, 30, 40 of them just jumping at a time.
Plain physics says it's about like getting hit with a bowling ball.
What makes these fish fly? Scientists speculate it's similar to human stress. Faced with frightening noise or commotion, silver Asian carp leap through the air like projectile missiles trying to escape. But it's what they do underwater that's the biggest danger. Insatiable, the silver and other Asian carp varieties devour drifting aquatic creatures called plankton, starving out other competing species. Worst of all, flying carp also eat vast amounts of oxygen-producing algae. Without algae, oxygen-starved rivers lose the ability to sustain animal life. It's a deadly chain reaction set off by this river's public enemy #1.
If you don't have them in your waters, you don't want them in your waters. You want to stop them before they get there.
Ironically, U.S. fisheries originally imported Asian carp precisely for their insatiable taste for algae. But while the carp did help commercial fish farms keep overgrown algae in check, some of the voracious feeders escaped, making their way into the Illinois River. Today, at the Redneck Tournament, the boat with the most carp wins a cash award. Using nets in their bare hands, competitors try to snag as many flying, flipping fish as possible without getting clobbered.
I've had friends that got hit in the head, and last year's tournament, somebody got hit in the nose and broke his nose.
But in the war on Asian carp, the Redneck Tournament's only a drop in the bucket.
We want our waters back. If there's anyone that has a solution to this, I wish they'd step forward and tell us how.
Fisheries biologist Dwayne Chapman is experimenting with other ways to stem the alarming Asian carp invasion.
One native.
Yeah, 1 in 5 there. It's very depressing when we put these nets out and catch, on average, about 2/3 non-natives invasive species that we'd rather not have. And that is indicative of the abundance of those fish.
Unpopular in the U.S. as human food, Dwayne's investigating the feasibility of using the fish as zoo animal feed. Still, the scientist fears any use for Asian carp creates an ongoing demand. A far better plan might be to wipe them out.
If I could snap my fingers right now like that and make every one in the United States disappear, I would do it in a minute.
These anglers collect carp by the boatload, pulling in close to 2,000. But these flying fish remain a cautionary tale. However we fight their dangerous spread, invasive species pose a constant threat, turning nature's calm into chaos. But in another fabled hand fishing tournament, it's man versus coveted native, the freshwater catfish. Oklahoma, 2 p.m., the 24-hour Okie Noodling tournament rages on as grappling fishermen vie for the biggest whopper. The clock is ticking, just 5.5 hours left to go. Unfortunately for these rival grabblers, record rains show no sign of letting up.
This is the deepest water I've seen around here for this long.
At least the wind ain't blowing too hard. That's good.
You said that earlier. See it starting to blow? Quit talking about the wind.
Don't mess
Don't
with the
jinx
fish,
us.
Working Lake Carl Blackwell, famed noodler Lee McFarland stalking a supersized specimen. He's hoping for a monster.
About a 50 come out. No.
Prior winning catfish have weighed well over 25 kilograms. Lee takes a deep breath and takes the plunge. No luck.
Son. When I got my leg back up in that hole, and that fish come underneath here and got underneath me, and I couldn't ever get him to bite me. He just lifted me up, pushed me right up, and went right underneath me.
Many noodlers say to catch a fish, you have to think like a fish.
One-on-one, I'll go against anybody, hunting or fishing. It's just, this is my second nature.
Got him! Lee's father believes this noodler has an inside track on his prey.
That's nice. If you believe in reincarnation and all that, I believe he was a fish.
Lee goes under for another try in a drenching downpour. Once agitated, the catfish may do more than bite. They also use their bodies as battering rams.
I've had them come up and hit you right in the throat when you're coming out.
Lee swims close up to the lurking catfish while Mark waits for the signal. Down below, Lee furrows in a rock bed, feeling for the telltale flesh and the powerful chomp.
Stringer! Come here for show.
At last, after 7 long hours spent hunting, poking, and prodding in Oklahoma lakes, success. It's a colossal catfish.
Let's go ahead and put him in the boat.
How's that one?
Lee pulls the catfish off his arm. His son carries the huge fish to the boat to put in a tub.
That's a nice one.
They estimate the fish weighs a formidable 22 kilograms. It's a monster, but Lee fears it's still too small to take top fish. He's driven to find more.
You want some glory to show people, hey, look at what we can catch. Because people think we're crazy anyways.
Yet as he heads to a new spot, he sees something frightening on the horizon. Lightning.
You don't play around water and lightning.
Now, with time running out, Lee watches the sky for a break in the dangerous weather. Some anglers form a powerful brotherhood, wrestling mammoth monsters caught barehanded. For them, hand fishing's their toughest test of strength and survival. San Pietro, small island off the coast of Sardinia. Since the time of Caesar, men have fished these fertile Mediterranean waters. Their most prized catch, the mighty bluefin tuna, a species revered as food and as a worthy opponent.
Tuna is a very strong fish. And the one that breaks the nets, that's the tuna I really love.
They're some of the strongest beasts on Earth, equipped with oxygen-rich muscle tissue that allows them to stay warm and agile even when hunting in frigid 4-degree waters. Tuna swim with astounding power and stamina, even reaching speeds of almost 100 kilometers per hour. So strong, they can easily travel halfway around the world in weeks. Huge and shimmering, bluefin tuna fend off predators by schooling underwater, deftly corralling and killing prey. Tuna have a limitless capacity to grow larger and larger. Record tuna have stretched longer than 4 meters, weighing over 600 kilograms. But no matter how big they get, their bulk never slows them down.
Bluefin tuna swim faster than it's legal to drive on most freeways. These are very large, very fast-growing fish, and when a fish is as large as that, very little in the ocean can threaten them.
Sardinian tuna fishing's a treasured heritage, a tradition unbroken since the Roman Empire, stretching at least as far back as the 4th century BC. Today, it remains a big part of local culture. No man can hand fish bluefin alone. It takes a tuna catching company called a tonara.
Things get done well, even though oftentimes it requires much more than it gives.
The head of the fisherman is the rice, Arabic for leader. More than anyone, he bears the burden of their feast or famine.
The rice is the expert. He has to be able to feel and practically be able to talk to the tuna.
Each spring, tonara fishermen, called tonarotti, drop woven nets into the sea, creating an elaborate maze stretching roughly 1.5 kilometers. As tuna migrate to the northwest, they swim into a single half-kilometer net stretching to the shore called the tail. The tail diverts the tuna into the trap. Once inside, the fish corral into a series of chambers, ultimately leading to the final net, nicknamed the Chamber of Death. The rice decides when the nets are full, watching and checking them in regular jaunts from shore. On his go, the collective must be ready for one of the most back-breaking hand fishing practices on Earth. May. Time for the harvest. The men begin pulling the net, dragging their boats inward, forcing the fish forward towards the Chamber of Death. As the nets close in, what starts as a 2-kilometer-long tuna trough ends up as a single net more than twice the size of a swimming pool.
Just the net weighs several tons. You have to raise it with your hands. You need a lot of strength.
To avoid net-ripping chaos, timing is everything.
We can lose fish when we attempt to close them in the chamber of death. The nets can collapse, and this makes the job even harder.
At last, it's time for the matanza, Italian for slaughter. The massive fish flip at the surface. If the men drop any part of the net, the tuna could escape. One by one, using hooks, the tonarotti jump into the water and wrestle the behemoths on board. Modern commercial boats rely on winches. Here, they use powerful arms, proud to keep an ancient tradition alive. The grueling work takes hours. The men are exhausted, yet no one quits. Landing the fighting tuna, the men duck and lunge. One wrong move could cost them a bounty, or worse, a dangerous injury. A tuna's flicking tail is a brutal weapon.
Sometimes it's a dangerous job. We're also dealing with fish that weigh 500 kilos. 300 to 400 kilos, they really have a lot of strength.
At last, after months of preparing, planning, and plotting the matanza, the 42-man Tanara team hoists up the final tuna, surveying the mammoth catch. Mission accomplished. This year, it's a good harvest. By the spring season's end, they expect to fish over 40,000 kilograms in total, gathered over as many as 10 more matanzas.
We try to keep our heads up. We hope that each year is better than the previous one.
But their jubilation's only temporary. Heavy commercial fishing elsewhere around the world is destroying their livelihood. Aggressive fisheries harvest huge quantities year-round, decimating healthy tuna populations faster than the fish can reproduce, putting the bluefin in grave danger.
They use satellites, airplanes. They look for schools of tuna in the middle of the sea, and they enclose them with ships. Every season, they catch what we can catch in 20 seasons.
Like the tuna who once ruled these waters, the ancient Tanara may soon be extinct. Their only hope is that other commercial fisheries follow their example, taking in smaller bounties, practicing sustainable techniques.
There was a time not that long ago when bluefin tuna ruled the North Atlantic, and the Tanara fishery had little effect on it. There were so many bluefin that this relatively inefficient fishery did not threaten the populations.
Respect of the sea, respect of the marine life. If you don't have a little bit of passion for the sea, for the tradition of the Tanara, I don't think you can do it.
But in a cutthroat competition across the Atlantic, hand fishing remains a personal obsession. The world's top catfish noodlers vie for the ultimate victory, bragging rights, and the biggest whopper. Now, as the Oki Noodling tournament hits the home stretch, controversy pushes rivalries to the breaking point. 4:30 p.m., June 30th. Just 3 hours left till the weigh-in at Bob's Pig Shop. After hours of torrential rain, competitors finally get the break they need. But as the sun shines down on these Oklahoma waters, tensions also heat up. One of Noodling's biggest disputes comes down to technology, namely scuba. Though some grabblers use full-on scuba gear, others, like passionate noodler Don Brewer, go lower tech. In his boat, Don runs an air compressor hose directly to his diving mask. But no matter what the gear, for purists, any noodling tech's a no-no.
The people that scuba dive noodling in our contest, yeah, that's a sport. I don't deny that it's a sport, but whenever you've got to come up, catch your breath, go down there, get a hold of this fish, get it precisely how you need it, and you're coming up all within one breath, to me, that's more of a challenge than somebody can go down there for 30 minutes and sit there and rub on a fish and tickle a fish and play with the fish.
But Don Brewer insists his risks are all too real.
For those people who think it's cheating, they just need to try it. Put 30 pounds of weights on you, jump off 15, 20 foot of water, then catch you a fish that weighs 80 pounds and try to swim back to the boat with it. Tell me how hard it is.
A past trophy winner, Don wears his love of the sport on his sleeve.
My wife got this for me for Valentine's Day, and I get a lot of recognition out of it, especially when you go to the Noodling tournaments. Everybody thinks it's awesome.
Strapped with diving gear, this modern-day grappler pushes noodling tech as low as he can go.
You get to fish the holes that nobody else is fishing.
Don targets a promising rock bed about 4 meters down. He takes the plunge. But high-tech help only goes so far. Successful noodling takes strength and skill. The smooth surface above is deceptive. Deep below, Don slogs through murk and mud, trying hole after hole. Finally, after nearly 20 minutes, sucking compressed air and lugging kilograms of heavy equipment, a jackpot. The noodler rushes towards the boat with a catfish longer than his arm. As he pulls it free, it's a monster. A serious contender. But Don's disappointed.
I'm never satisfied with what I take, not unless he weighs 60, 70 pounds.
On board, Don adds it to his growing stash of live fish. Will one of these whiskered whoppers take top prize?
Right now, I got worries. You know, I'm just hoping everybody else had as much trouble as we did.
Each year, by the light of a full or new moon, curious thrill seekers flock by the thousands to witness one of the strangest mating rituals on Earth, all for a fishing free-for-all caught barehanded.
Crowds go crazy, they always have a lot of fun, but again, it's the fish is the main thing. That's what draws everybody down here.
Cabrillo Beach, San Pedro, California. High tide, 10:20 p.m. Armed with buckets and flashlights, they wait, scanning the waters for signs of one of the most peculiar adaptations in all of nature: fish mating on land.
They fertilize the eggs, they pop up, they go back to the ocean. That's amazing.
Grunion spawning and fishing season has arrived. Silvery, small, and slippery, the grunion fish is native to a stretch of Southern California coast. Prized for food and sport, these wily fish are hard to catch, except when they spawn.
They're very fascinating because they do their thing out of their natural habitat.
Like clockwork, on chosen nights from March through August, thousands of grunion mate simultaneously in wriggling pairs. But unlike most fish, they do it out of the water, on the beach. And like finicky romantics, they'll only couple after a full or new moon.
We actually can predict what nights and what time of the year the grunion may show up.
This year, the host of this peculiar party is nearby Cabrillo Marine Aquarium. Aquarium Programs Director Larry Fukuhara is a grunion guru.
What we're going to be doing is we'll be hatching grunion eggs. Let me show you.
Year after year, he marvels at this strange species' behavior.
Fish belong in the water. Okay, then all of a sudden you start thinking of fish coming out of the water. That's fascinating.
Grunion predictability is an ancient phenomenon, as is this unique way to catch them barehanded. For centuries, Native Americans hand-fished grunion by intercepting their mass mating ritual on shore.
You'd be surprised, it's not easy to catch grunions by hand, it really isn't.
10:22 p.m. The grunion runners watch expectantly. With a forward rush, the crowd lets out a scream. In an enormous shimmering blanket, the grunions surge onto shore, engulfing the sands. As the frantic hand fishing begins, with each wave, female grunion flick and arch, half burying themselves in sand. Male grunion then wrap themselves around the waiting females. As she deposits her eggs, he deposits his sperm. For a fleeting moment, they're exposed together.
They're out of their element. That's when they're vulnerable. Their mind is somewhere else.
The scramble continues as these grunion runners grab at any fish they can. Just as suddenly as they arrive, the spawning grunion catch the next waves back into the ocean, leaving their eggs buried deep behind in the sand. Around 10 days later, the eggs will hatch, releasing grunion larvae, or hatchlings. Though many eggs and hatchlings fall prey to predators like birds and larger fish, the annual mating ritual ensures the species' survival.
How many babies survive after they go back to the ocean? Maybe 2 out of the 3,000. And that's enough, though, to keep them going.
On shore, as the chaos subsides, the grunion grabbers compare catches.
I got a whole bucket full. This is my first time.
Most have caught only a few. The grunion have successfully spawned by the thousands. And thanks to human error, no amount of frenzied beach grabbing can endanger grunion populations. These delicate fish face a much greater threat from beach erosion, pollution, and shoreline development. Marine biologists hope these harmless hand fishing excursions increase awareness of the species and help save it from extinction.
We've been doing this for years and years and years. Catching by hand is a safe way to make sure the population continues.
It was really cool. I mean, you just grab down and if you got one, you were lucky. I mean, my shoes are sopping wet, but that's okay. I had a great time. There it goes.
7:30 p.m., Pauls Valley, Oklahoma. It's been a tough 24 hours with relentless rain, lightning storms, and raging rivers. Now, for America's top catfish grabblers, it's the moment of truth. The annual Okie Noodling Tournament's grand finale. Time to see who's caught the biggest whopper barehanded.
Oklahoma, here we are again. The 8th annual world's largest noodling tournament in the world right here in Pauls Valley, Oklahoma.
Grabblers carry in catfish by the truckload, gathering with fans, friends, and families for the weigh-in at Bob's Pig Shop.
Somehow, some way, they got down there and caught them. I don't know how they did.
I think they might be a little better than we are.
I think they're crazy. I think that you basically have to have been dropped on your head to do that kind of thing.
Competitors watch the judges closely. After a day and night spent noodling, they've pulled up colossal catfish, big as their own children.
We play hardball when it comes to noodling.
Don Brewer.
I think we'll place.
We were just happy to catch fish.
It's the guy that's got the best opportunity on the day with the fish that's in the hole that day. It's not a matter who's number one, who's number two. We're all good. We all love what we do. We all love our sport.
The crowd gathers at the podium for the results.
Now, what you've been waiting for, the biggest fish, 60.2 pounds. Chad Lamb, where you at, man?
Winner of the day, Oklahoma noodler Chad Lamb, with a whopper as big as a bathtub, weighing in at 27 kilograms. For visiting Missouri grabblers Howard Ramsey and Gary Webb, they lost the trophy, but it's been a reminder of their quest to make noodling a national pastime.
Eventually, we're going to have a hand fishing season in Missouri.
Grabbler Don Brewer's partner Dennis took second place in the stringer category, the weights of 3 catches combined. But for Don, it's been a chance to push noodling technology to the edge.
I was down there on one of our favorite holes, 12 to 14 foot deep. We caught a lot of fish, but we didn't catch what we wanted.
And for local legend Lee McFarland,
Second runner-up stringer at 120.2. Lee McFarland, where are you at, my friend? Lee is the man.
it's been a celebration of a passionate family tradition. And the noodler remains committed to what he sees as the true value of the tournament and the sport itself.
I mean, it's you one-on-one against Mother Nature. It's not really about winning, it's not really about losing. It's the thing about a bunch of noodlers getting together and let's talk about it, let's keep the sport alive.
Around the world, they pit themselves against some of nature's most incredible creatures. Showdowns with powerful predators, intense competitions for sport and food, and mad melees of man versus fish. Dedicated and determined, they carry on traditions old and new. All for the extraordinary thrill of fishing adventures on Caught Barehanded.
I got him.